Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, aka the one where Jason kicks a radio. Released in 1989, and with a new batch of teenage victims to hunt down, this entry in the franchise promised an exciting new direction. We were now going to see Jason let loose in the big city, where most of the action actually takes place on a boat. Okay. But hey, we still get to see Jason in the city, which actually, for the most part, wasn't in New York. Hey, we still get to see Jason kick that radio, yeah. So today we're going to explore this fascinating Manhattan-based entry, which doesn't really feature any Manhattan, by exploring 10 things that you didn't know about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So today we're talking about Jason Voorhees, a boat, Manhattan, so that can mean only one thing. We're talking about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. But first, this episode is brought to you by no one, so you won't be getting a quick word from today's sponsor's interruptions, so let's check it out. Ha! Number 10, 3 simultaneous scripts. It's 1988, and Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood is released. So work immediately gets started on making Friday the 13th, Part 8. Only, there were several Friday the 13th, Part 8s happening at the same time. Makeup artist and the director of Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, John Carl Buechler, got to work on his own script, which would have focused on the return of the New Blood character, Tina Shepard, who after being released from an asylum, has to once again face off against Jason. While this is happening, Tina Shepard actress La Park Lincoln and her husband were writing their own Friday the 13th Part 8 script, in which, as Wikipedia puts it, would have seen the Tina Shepard character working as a psychologist for troubled young girls. I guess it sounds similar to Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, so yeah, they were clearly going in that direction. And all while this is happening, actor Kevin Spirtas, who also starred in The New Blood as the character Nick Rogers, was also writing his own version of Friday the 13th Part 8, which would have revealed that the events of The New Blood were all just a dream, with the Nick Rogers character turning out to be the real killer. Or something. Regardless, Paramount decided that the franchise needed a course correction and didn't go with any of these scripts, and decided not to follow on from the story established in The New Blood. On a side note, it's also said that Tina actress La Park Lincoln didn't return because she asked for a pay rise, but she couldn't reach negotiations with Paramount. Number 9, getting Jason out of the lake. It was decided to go in a different direction for the 8th installment, and to not connect the movie so closely to The New Blood, as that installment had performed quite low in the box office, lower than usual, with it being felt that the series was on a decline. So in order to breathe new life, former Universal Studios employee Rob Hedden was brought in to helm this new installment, whom had already previously directed 2 episodes of the Friday the 13th TV series, with him being both the writer and director on Jason Takes Manhattan. And as mentioned, one thing seemed clear: new life needed to be breathed into this franchise. So Hedden got the idea of taking Jason Voorhees out of Camp Crystal Lake and onto new locations, to try something different. Hedden himself would go on to say, quote, "The biggest thing we could do with Jason is to get him out of that stupid lake where he's been hanging out." Yeah, I get that. You can only have Jason killing kids around Crystal Lake so many times till it starts to feel, been there, done that. So the question is, what new pastures would Part 8 take Jason into? Number 8, when 2 scripts become one. So Rob Hedden had 2 major ideas for Friday the 13th Part 8. One was to see Jason on a cruise ship, which according to Hedden would have been like Dust Boot meets Aliens. That's an interesting combination. The other idea was to see Jason let loose in the big city itself, New York. In fact, round about that time, taking the action to the big city seemed to be a popular trend with sequels, as several big sequels would see big city location shifts, including Poltergeist 3, Gremlins 2, Predator 2, and, well, Short Circuit 2. So movie sequels making the leap to big cities definitely was a trend at that time. Paramount seemed happy with both ideas, so Hedden decided to combine both of these ideas into the one movie, where the first half of the movie was on a boat and the second half was to take place in Manhattan. This was also a cost-cutting idea, as it was felt that it was expensive to film in New York, so let's put a great deal of the action on a boat. However, the title of Jason Takes Manhattan is a little misleading, as first-time viewers are going to think that the whole movie is solely based in New York. Technically, what the title should have been was Jason Briefly Takes Manhattan after spending a great deal of time on a boat, but hey, I guess that title's too damn long. Number 7, Jason Takes Vancouver. Now, Rob Hedden had big plans for Jason's Manhattan romp, where Jason was to cause chaos on the Brooklyn Bridge, Madison Square Gardens, department stores, as well as crash his way through a Broadway play, and the climax saw Jason on top of the Statue of Liberty, with it sounding like the original vision was to fully make use of the New York settings, and to use as many of the city's landmarks as possible. However, Paramount Pictures had other ideas. Despite Jason Takes Manhattan having a budget of over $5 million, the highest budget the series had ever had at that time, Paramount didn't want to pay out the large fees for filming in New York City. So instead, most of the city scenes were actually filmed in Vancouver, Canada, with Vancouver doubling for New York, which meant all these epic scenes of Jason at all these iconic New York landmarks couldn't be filmed, as the movie wasn't actually being filmed there. The only scenes that were shot in New York was a sequence at Times Square. And to be honest, the Times Square scenes looked great, and actually have that bustling New York City look and feel. I don't know, I personally think they should have forked out the extra cash and filmed entirely in New York. In addition to that, some extra scenes were also filmed in Los Angeles. Number 6, and A Nightmare on Elm Street alumni was approached to star in the movie. When it came to Jason Takes Manhattan's main lead, a new character called Rennie Wickham, the original choice for the part was Lisa Cox, who had just previously starred as Alice in rival slasher movie A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. However, she turned the part down, probably because at that time she was too busy starring in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Other actresses who were considered for the part include Pamela Anderson, Saved by the Bell star Elizabeth Berkley, and Dee Dee Pfeiffer, the sister of Michelle Pfeiffer. The part would eventually be cast with actress Jansen Daggett, who in the 90s would go on to have a career starring in many popular TV shows, including Home Improvement. The movie also features Kelly Hu would go on to star as Deathstroke in X-Men 2, and of course Kane Hodder as the big man himself, Jason Voorhees, with this being the second out of 4 times he would play the part, with Hodder becoming a fan favourite within the series. Number 5, filming quirks and potatoes. Yes, don't worry, this will all make sense in a minute. Whilst filming Jason Takes Manhattan, in order to avoid snoopy reporters and enthusiastic fans, the movie actually went under the title of Ashes to Ashes. Although these stealth antics were pointless when filming in Times Square, as pedestrians just going about their business were shocked to see Jason Voorhees roaming around the place, causing a huge crowd of people to gather around. Where Hodder, in his complete Jason makeup, pointed at one fan in particular, causing her to faint. But nothing is more crazy with the behind the scenes than the story of one of the boats that was used for filming. The boat in question was actually rented from a private owner in Washington who won the boat in a poker game. Okay. But the boat could not be used to film in Canada, as filming a movie was not considered legit business reasons for bringing the boat into Canadian waters. So the Canadian authorities were basically like, hey, if you want to film a boat in Canada, then use a Canadian boat that's already here, please. So to get past this policy, the crew had to stack the boat with potatoes and import potatoes into Canada in order to get the boat legally into Canadian waters on the grounds of business trading, with the with the production literally acting as a potato delivery service in order to do filming there. Potatoes save the day, hooray! Oh, I swear you couldn't make this shit up. I mean, seriously, how petty. Number 4, the struggle to film nude scenes. Ooh, spicy. Here's an interesting snippet of information I got from HorrorGeekLife.com. Director Rob Hedden really wanted the movie's main star, Jansen Daggett, to do a naked scene for the movie, but she refused. After trying to convince her and inform her that it wouldn't damage her career, and even minimalizing the state of undress to just being topless, she still stood her ground and refused to dethrone for the camera. Instead, as several people have pointed out, the Rennie Wickham character is actually one of the most dressed characters in the franchise. Still wanting the need to have some nudity in the film, Hedden then turned his attention to co-star Charlene Martin to fully derobe and film a shower scene. And at first, she wasn't sure, she was hesitant. So to demonstrate it wasn't that much of a big deal, Hedden himself got fully undressed and went in the shower, to basically say, look, there's nothing to it. But he didn't know that the cameras were rolling. And so the next day, when some Paramount executives saw the dailies, they were confused as to why they were seeing the director's bare ass in the film. Yeah, look, this situation got weird, so I'm just moving on. Number 3, original ending. In the movie's climax, we see Jason struck with toxic waste, and in the original script, Jason was to completely melt into nothing from the toxic waste. But it was felt that such an ending wouldn't leave the door open for sequels, and that seeing Jason melt away would just be a little too final. So the ending was changed, where after Jason is struck by the toxic waste, he is reduced to being a young child. The Jason as a kid aspect came to be because director Rob Hedden wanted to explore the notion of Jason as a child, something that was explored in the very first Friday the 13th movie. And Hedden wanted to go full circle, with child Jason being a prevalent part of the story again. So throughout the movie we see hallucination glimpses of Jason as a kid. It's said that this ending of child Jason was to add ambiguity as to whether or not this was another hallucination, or if Jason had indeed reverted back to a child, now being free from the evil that was within him. But ultimately it was a subplot that left fans confused and frankly they didn't really like. Yeah, apparently this ending really frustrated a lot of people. Number 2, promotional efforts gone crazy. So the powers that be wanted to get the word out there that in this Friday the 13th caper, Jason is indeed let loose in Manhattan, as you can see with the theatrical movie poster, which shows Jason's ginormous head looming above the New York City skyline. However, another movie poster sees Jason slashing his machete through an I Love New York poster. Although this may have seemed like a fun and cheeky poster, it actually landed the production in some hot water, as the New York Tourism Committee filed a complaint over the poster. At the time, the I Love New York imagery had become iconic, and the committee probably felt this put a negative light on the campaign. So to ease tensions, Paramount got rid of this poster entirely and put it in the bin. Another promotional effort for Jason Takes Manhattan sees Jason Voorhees himself as a guest on the Arsenio Hall show. Yeah, only at this moment in time could you have Jason in character as a guest on the Arsenio Hall show. What a time to be alive. Jason doesn't say a thing throughout the entire interview, while Hall just laughs nervously. It's honestly hilarious and comedy gold, and it's oddly also adorable at the same time. Also in 1989, the Friday the 13th Nintendo game came out. Yep, Jason had now made it into the video game world, where in the game you play as camp counselors who have to find Jason. And yeah, this game is like a confusing maze. And along the way you also have to defeat other villains like crows and zombies. Ugh, what a deadly combination, them crows and zombies, whoa. The biggest contribution to the world the game gave us was Purple Jason, an image so iconic, an action figure of the NES Purple Jason was released by Mecha, because why not? A great and wonderful moment in the franchise's history. Number 1. A Farewell from Paramount. Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, was released in July 1989 and made just over $14 million on its $5 million budget. And it was considered a box office disappointment, making nearly $5 million less than its predecessor, The New Blood, which itself was already considered a low financial point in the series. Now, to be fair, Jason Takes Manhattan was competing against other horror movie sequels at that time, like A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Halloween 5, and Fright Night 2. And this competition itself was already pretty overcrowded in the summer blockbuster season of 1989, as it was also up against other big franchise movies like Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Karate Kid 3, License to Kill, Star Trek 5, and of course the real blockbuster eater at that time, Batman. Not to mention other popular movies coming out, like Parenthood, When Harry Met Sally, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Dead Poets Society, Turner and Hooch, and Roadhouse, and many more. So needless to say, the box office was pretty crowded with big event movies, and the competition would have been really tough regardless. But sadly, Jason Takes Manhattan also got pretty abysmal reviews too, with the New York Daily News accusing the movie of, quote, grossly underutilizing its promising premise. Yep, you see this right here? This is why, if you have a movie called Jason Takes Manhattan, you should actually film in Manhattan and not base most of the movie on a boat. Leonard Maltin, on the other hand, was more optimistic, describing this entry as the best in the series. Wow. Regardless, due to the disappointing reception of Jason Takes Manhattan, it was now time for Paramount Pictures to part ways with the Friday the 13th franchise. From 1980 to 1989, Paramount had periodically non-stop distributed 8 Friday the 13th movies, which is actually a pretty good effort. But I guess at this point, it was felt that the franchise lost its spark, and so New Line Cinema would end up buying the rights to the series in the hopes of making a Freddy vs. Jason movie, where in 1993, they released their first entry in the franchise, Jason Goes to Hell. Regardless, Jason Takes Manhattan represents a moment in the franchise where the 80s were now over, and that the original glory days were gone, and Jason now had new destinations waiting for him in the future, as well as new victims to hunt down. Look, Jason Takes Manhattan may not be the best in the series, and it does have its issues and its quirks, but I still find it to be a lot of fun. And all said and done, didn't mean for that to rhyme, it does finally take Jason out of Camp Crystal Lake and put him into new territories, so you've got to give the movie that. So I do think that this is one that Friday the 13th fans will enjoy. Anyway, I'm Minty, and remember, the next time you watch Jason Takes Manhattan, the movie wouldn't have even been made if it wasn't for potatoes. Potatoes? Ha! Potatoes! Potatoes! Yeah, see ya.